I'm really so pleased that we have got a whole array of different people working within the Heritage Lottery Fund sort of sphere. So actually this is where we are looking at oral history as funded outside the Academy, funded by a kind of mixture of state and private funding. Well, we'll hear all about it, but I think the part of the point is that it may be that many of you find yourselves thinking about applying to the Heritage Lottery Fund at a later stage to do your own further oral histories, and then you'll really see how built into it is the question of public community interest, public culture.
So the Level Restoration Project, the Level is a piece of ground in the centre of Brighton that is now a park. Brighton Hove City Council applied for a huge Parks for People programme grant and were awarded quite a lot of money, 2.3 million, to completely refurbish the park and put in a new skate park, because there was an area that the skateboarders owned, but they put in this beautiful new skateboarding park, new playground, new cafe with an organic living roof, all in consultation with the local people. But as Sarah and Sue have said, there's always got to be some kind of community heritage and intangible heritage that kind of goes alongside. I'm imagining with all of the big restorations, is that true, that you want some kind?
Parks for People specifically has to have heritage interpreted and explained, and because of the nature of parks, that kind of oral history project lends itself absolutely to it. Yeah.
There we go. So this heritage part became the people's history of the Level. This is the Level, I think, in like the 1930s. One of those babies there was an interviewee in her 70s or 80s as part of the project. And volunteers were recruited to form the heritage team. And again, I deliver training, but what I like to do is kind of make it very participatory and over time, so that we do the first part, probably similarly to what you've been doing here, is you do the first part, you look at what oral history is, the values, the issues that arise with it, best practice, ethics, consent, all of those sort of things, putting a directive, a question directive together, and I wanted to do that with the people because they knew what questions they wanted to ask, and then they went out and did the interviews. We recruited people. Now, what we also did was we had a day where we advertised on huge billboards for people to come along, and we recruited from people we knew. That's where Sasha comes in, and I won't ask you to talk a little bit in a moment about how you became involved.
The Level, which is the park, had always been part of my life, and found out that there was going to be this big regeneration programme, and suddenly felt really sort of protective of it, and wanted to have ownership of it, along with so many other hundreds and thousands of people in Brighton, and everyone had a story, had a connection with it, and I felt like it was really essential that I should go and say something. So I sort of turned up on the day, and it was really well organised, and it was really well set out, and it really felt like it was we were being provided for as residents of Brighton, and the Level being, part of our past and our heritage, and so being given the opportunity to sort of tell a story about it, no matter a tiny little story or a little piece of your past, potentially having that in a time capsule, and future generations listening to it, and knowing that it was always going to be used, and it was a really important part of the town, and a big sort of connecting part of the town, like going around the Level. You do walk through it, you pass around it, and just all life being there, and Brighton being a really sort of diverse place to sort of live in, and it's transient as well, and people have always used it, and that being really important. And then being able to go somewhere and tell a story about it, and then all this kind of all part of my past coming back, and my experience being there. And it felt like I was having the opportunity to contribute as well, I think. And actually everyone's got a story, and that being really valid, everyone being able to sort of say something, and me being able to tell a story about deciding to jump backwards off of a roundabout and taking my skin off my elbow, and in this old vagrant and sort of coming past and taking me over to have my arm washed, and just evoking this huge great memory that I hadn't thought about for ages, and just everyone sharing stories and then being able to have them recorded. It just felt like we were all part of something, and Brighton was ours, because I think we like someone was saying earlier on about this whole just everything becoming really corporate and everything becoming really just a whole new schlick on stuff, and it just suddenly felt like it was we were all having this sort of, it was all really authentic, and it was all part of us, and we'd contributed to it, and we were being asked to contribute to something that was going to document a part of Brighton history, I guess.
Okay, so we'll just have your question, and I'm not allowed a lot of time. Okay, so we'll have you one after the other, and then...
Okay, just a quick question about the Heritage Lottery Funds. I was just thinking in terms, it's wonderful about the community and the way the engagement with people. I was just thinking now in the digital age, and some of us are doing this sort of partly to explore digital humanities, what potentially you see for perhaps collaboration also out of this country, so for international ways in which to engage communities across the country.
Okay, thank you. And then...
I wanted to just ask about, there's someone that's done a lot of different projects. Are you clear with people about the end of the project? Because when you have to separate yourself from the project, I would imagine there's still this sort of tension of wanting to hold on to you as the project coordinator, and I just wondered how that's managed.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, so...
Well, outside the UK, the Heritage Lottery Fund only funds projects that happen within the UK. So the beneficiaries have to be, we're going back to the lottery players. However, if you've got a way of engaging with people from elsewhere, there's absolutely no reason why you can't do that. We have discovered with programmes like First World War, Then and Now programme, that sometimes there seems to be a really good reason why going over to battlefield site or whatever for a particular group of people might be a good use of money, but for us it always comes down to value for money, what you're actually getting out of it in terms of the people who've paid into the lottery funds.
What I forgot to mention about my other role in Gateways to the First World War is I work at the University of Kent for 3 days a week on a AHRC funded engagement centre, and I'm the community heritage researcher, and I liaise between the academic experts on First World War and community heritage projects. Therefore we work quite closely together because we're both trying to advise these projects to be shaped as best as possible. And there are all sorts of things that I've come across digital, in terms of digital outputs, such as walking tours, apps, and those sort of things, and mapping techniques that are all kind of new to me. So these things are all valid outputs, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think, digital in itself is cross-bound borders, isn't it? I mean, anyone can access it. And yes, we're very open to the suggestion of collaboration that doesn't require expensive foreign travel.
And then
Separation
trying to break away.
at the end, yes.
Trying to break away.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's difficult actually, because you do find yourself, as I said, we built communities in doing this, and I suppose you start finding that you're moving on to another project, so you actually haven't got time to do that to some extent, so you've got quite a good excuse, but then you do find yourself hanging around with some things that you're enjoying, so you might just put more effort in and more time in above and beyond to keep engaging with certain things. Particularly, for instance, I mentioned that the play that came out of the Brighton Housing Trust homelessness project. I'd finished working on that project completely, but felt very involved in seeing it through to the end of this woman putting their play on at the Fringe. So, yeah, you've got to kind of decide for yourself. Yeah, really.
It's lovely to hear, you know, that it's possible to do this as work. And I also found your presentation very encouraging and validating. I think of what we're all sort of aspiring to do and be is actually opening up history. And I suppose you gave me the belief it can work. You know. So thank you so much. Let's once again thank our panel.